Claymation. There is indeed that Nico prop right back there that I made, and he was done for a Wind Waker theme tutorial where I would actually explain how to make a claymation under the guise of Zelda, and that would have been pretty fun. It still will be fun, believe me. I'll make it eventually, but I made that in that stead, and I also had actually even another claymation over here where it was for the marchscarf channel, and that was the one with the blue ghost figure. I used the one more go with him. There were other figure times it was used for the videos on that channel, but the one next particular version of that was the one for a controversial topic, which is why it's on that marchscarf channel. It's an even further rendition of that. It's actually so I made a commission for that topic, a political aggressive topic, if you will, but for that more controversial version of the topic, I made a commission of that using him, and he was still ruined at that point. He was still very unpolished and all that, but I did make one more claymation with him. So between sculpting Nico the pirate and doing a claymation for the other alternate channel, there was nothing else going on with claymation at that point because I had either been taking a break, especially because the vacation I just took, and that was pretty fun for a week. And actually, I can tell you guys about that on the vlog section on this channel if I can, for vacation insightful. But other than the vacation I actually just took for a week and the other things I was doing, the things that are preoccupying me in the meantime, I can talk about them as well. Like the gardening I was doing, I guess you could say. The other projects I had in mind, even just taking my time in general, not pressuring myself to do things, as per the advice from Bear Help that I've gotten. Long story about that, I haven't talked about that too much, but there hasn't been too much else going on. Like I said, I was not pressuring myself to do too many things. I was trying to make sure that I would eventually do claymation every once in a while, which I did, like I said, do. I didn't do much otherwise, but the thing with claymation, and this was going to be a topic long coming for the channel eventually, was I mentioned this several times before, I would believe. The idea that I've not actually had a passion for claymation before, or even to this point. There is a title I was going to make for another video maybe, called why claymation is not my passion, and I can explain a little bit about that right now at this very point if I can. Especially if that doesn't become a video yet, but like, claymation was either a guilt trip or a actual outlet that I didn't have to use. And what I mean by the first part is that it was a guilt trip because I used it as a means to figure out how to solve my life problems, and not so much without looking internally as people obnoxiously point out whether I actually was in that field already, or how annoyed I would be if I actually was in that field already, and them saying like that as I haven't been looking that way through the kind of process. So it was a kind of a discovery weapon kind of thing in a good way, but not in a shallow way either. It just happened to be something that I used it to figure out how to take responsibility for my life in a way where if it was the outlet, then it would lead in with things I didn't have to understand, which is what the second part's about. But for guilt tripping, it was like I didn't have to use claymation to do much of anything else. I didn't have to make it look like I knew that it would not have to be used to help me figure out my life. It could just be its own fun thing, which I didn't. There's a lot about that. How I did not believe it to be that way, where I didn't believe it to be like this perpetual fun thing. Which on one hand, I wasn't actually comfortable with that. Most people are very comfortable with that. I'm uncomfortable with that, and there's a very few things I will say I'm uncomfortable about because I don't like the idea of being discomforted if I disagree with the idea of discomfort in itself. You know, that has been something I've tried to mention before, but it never came across that way to people for some reason. So especially with the outlet kind of thing. So the problem with the outlet was that for it to be an outlet I didn't actually care about. And again, there are very few things I will say that about. Very few things I'll say I don't care because I care about everything. Spectacle of that. But I do have a way to not care about the outlet that was offered through claymation, and that was not limited to claymation. There were other things in that circle. There was cartooning. There was actually being a creative or lyricist, you could call it that, like things like being a writer or an author, or being a journalist, all that kind of stuff, the good stuff, reporter, whatever. I mentioned that in another video before long ago, like in 2018, I think it was 2019. But Claymation essentially was an outlet that I didn't have to be thrilled about, to say at least. I knew that it would offer me things that if cared about monetarily speaking, or even in servitude, in either fashion, that there's inter exchanges between servitude and monetization or whatever, or professionalism or quality content, which I'm sorry I make it look that bad, but sometimes I have regret to this day about it. I think Crispy Quinn said it best when he mentioned that I meant to respond to him about this, but I might eventually make a really response to that. But Crispy Quinn said that there might be a misunderstanding I might have about how quality content can be a ruse when it actually can be much better than that. And I agree, but I just didn't know how to word it back to him in my own description, my own perspective of that. I guess I would at this point already know how to say that, but that's all I got for now. But I'll expand on that later if I can, if not in another video. But so Claymation really was that thing where I was caught in the tragedy of many other things in my life, not limited to creativity. And the perspective I have of creativity being something that I actually was involved with, although not necessarily someone who actually knew why it was there, or what I could do with it, whether to overcomplicate or oversimplify, But to actually think of Claymation as being a part of creativity wasn't so much of a problem in itself. I had an issue already with the idea of creativity being something that was a part of me, because I wasn't ashamed of it. Like, I'm sorry, but look, there are so many labels that come on me about being the kind of person who doesn't have to know who he is, but still has to disregard every other assumption made about him that could be true, but even if they are, they don't explain the whole story. And even saying it like that disturbs me. There's a lot of that's a long story, but Claymation was that thing where, without even saying anything about the process of stop motion or the puppet making or sculpting these props with clays on the ground, without saying anything specifically exemplified about that, you already have me saying these things about tragedy and guilt tripping and excuses, and maybe this would be excuse not Claymation. Loophole. But before I even say anything really about the creative part of Claymation, you have me saying things like all these negative terms as if they're something I'm hiding, and I'm not trying to hide it. I'm trying to explain it as I say these things, but it looks like I'm hiding it, right? I don't realize that myself, but it looks like I'm trying to hide something, but I'm trying to reveal it over time. There's a lot combined with the generalized tragedy itself that is in some ways segued into my creative endeavors, not necessarily passions, like I'm saying, as I'm trying to say, but segmentation to these outlets. Not necessarily passions, but they're still there, whether I use them or not. And untrained as they may be to not stay for long, like that's the other tragedy, is that potentially I face losing Claymation as the same way I technically lost cartooning, which is if you don't practice it enough, it will go away, and that will be a terrible thing for it to happen to me. Even if I don't believe in that being a bad thing, it will still be pretty bad. But Claymation was not a good route for me to go if I wasn't going to actually drive it forward with enough enthusiasm. But the even sadder thing was that even if I didn't believe in Claymation anymore, I never gave up on it, but even if I didn't think it was good for me anymore to be a Claymation animator, there were still people who were going to depend on me to do those things. And not in a selfish way, it's an endearing servitude way where I could help them with that. Even if I don't believe in quality content the way that I'm supposed to, apparently, it would still be helpful for them. And that was the saddest thing about Claymation that happened to me. I never let it go, but it can never stay with me anyway. So I'm hoping that there's something that clicks with me in the future that I can do Claymation for in the meantime. If I can, that would be great. If not, at least it was there.